Det tidligere Fyns Kunstmuseum har efter fusionen med Brandts børstet støvet af sig og fremstår nu som et moderne kunstmuseum anno 2014. Det nye navn er Brandts 13, og museet præsenterer et program af ny og eksperimenterende dansk og udenlandsk kunst. Afgangseleverne fra det Fynske Kunstakademi åbner museet sammen med den sydafrikanske kunstner Penelope Siopis. Vi har talt med Penelope om hendes videoværk Obscure White Messenger.
South Africa is an important influence, of course, in my work. I was born there. I grew up in the time of apartheid, so I witnessed that time in the country, a time of gross human rights violations with the racial segregation. And then I was there also, of course, during liberation, and the new democratic South Africa. So I feel that a lot of my work has actually reflected that time from apartheid times to what is called post-apartheid time. But even though I'm very influenced, obviously, by my life and living in South Africa, I think I try to make my works have a wider significance. So the story of the film is really about a particular man and an event that happened in South Africa. But actually it's really the story of a human being who's struggling to find his identity and longing for a home where he can not feel all the time like a diaspora, like a person who will always be in a state of in English they'd say at sea, which is like never quite finding a rootedness. And so I find the particularity of the stories and the experience of South Africa gives me an opportunity to open up that experience and see that experience in terms of larger global questions, even though it's very specifically local. So the stories are very emblematic, and that's what I try and do with my work. I'm always very conscious when I travel, like coming here or in Paris last year, in Venice, and I'm very conscious about the reception of the work. So I'm curious to see how people who are not South African see the work. And it's surprising to me how many people do actually respond in ways which I feel are very much core to the work, very connected to the work, even though they don't know the South African story in particular. So that's really what I want to work with a way in which one's life, in whatever the particular circumstances are, can produce art that is shareable in a much broader way. And human stories are always doing that. The film that's on exhibition is called Obscure White Messenger, and it takes the story of a man, half Mozambique and half Greek, who went to South Africa and assassinated the Prime Minister H.F. Verwoerd in 1996 in the Parliament. This man, the assassin, became a parliamentary messenger, and in that way he could get very close to the Prime Minister. In 1966 it was the height of apartheid, and this Prime Minister had been the person to really shape apartheid. He was called the architect of apartheid. So the film is really about this man, Demetrius Siopis, who assassinated the Prime Minister, and it's really about his particular life, but it also speaks to a much larger situation in which individuals are caught in conflict that is political and historical and in much wider terms than the immediate history that they're in. So it's a story really about this individual, Demetrius Siopis, who is always trying to find a home, and who in a way only manages to find significance for himself when he finally kills the Prime Minister, the HF Foot. But otherwise, he's a very obscure man. He made this history-altering event, but actually he, in the South African history books, according to the old narratives, he was very obscure. Nobody really knew much about him. And when the new liberation struggle came in, new liberation movement, when there was democracy, the new South Africa also didn't give his story much attention. It's an interesting story because there's a lot of dramatic moments to it, in that Demetrius Siopis thought that he was in some ways being political by assassinating the Prime Minister, but the narrative, the story that was given to explain the assassination was this man was mad. And he was mad because he had spoken about having a tapeworm in his stomach, and this tapeworm was never completely ejected from his body, so there was still a head that remained in his body, and that this tapeworm made him crazy, so crazy that he killed the Prime Minister. Now that wasn't really the full story, of course, but it was a very useful story for the apartheid regime to present publicly as to the reason why the Prime Minister was killed. It wouldn't have been a good story to tell if the story was more like it was, meaning that this man did have political intention and that the man was of mixed race, he wasn't white. So that fact itself would have caused a lot of political conflict in the country at the time. So anyway, it sounds very much like it's a very political story, which in some ways it is, but the way I've made it is quite poetic in my view. I've taken the bits of film from existing footage that's in the world, but it's 8mm home movies, very personal, very domestic, not public. And I've put these together, cut sequences, put them together with text, which is really relates the story of Siopis, and music. The film comes from all sorts of places. It's anonymous in that I didn't know the people who shot the film. I found the film in the marketplace, in the charity shops. So the film already comes with a history, and then I put these sequences of the film with another history, which is specifically Demetrius Siopis' story, and with music which is quite emotional. I know that many people don't like this building. I think it's a fantastic building for art, for contemporary art. There's a lot of scope for doing interesting things with this space. And I'm very impressed with this Brandts 13 and what used to be the factory, I think, where the permanent collection is now, where the collection is, and the big tattoo show, which is brilliant. I've liked it very much. I've found the whole set of exhibitions and the people at Brandts amazingly warm and professional, and I'm very excited about how things will develop here too. It was very interesting to be, and wonderful to be there last night at the big opening, and seeing all the people who clearly are enjoying, especially the tattoo show. I think it has a really broad appeal. It's a little bit like I was talking about what interests me in my films is the human story, and I think there's a really big human story that the tattoo exhibition. And then it's wonderful to work here in this museum with the students at the academy. I'm really impressed with their work, and I'm impressed with how the work is being curated to assist the students and to give them some way in which they can move from being a student to being an artist in the bigger world. The integrity that they have as students in terms of just exploring what they want to explore is something that they need to keep when they leave. And this exhibition really shows the importance of that.